Hello and welcome to another episode of Chillin' with Dylan. You are with the three of us, three guys in the studio here, and this is also being recorded on a video podcast, which you may or may not see. But I'm really excited to introduce the topic today. It is called Big Data, Small Data, and Crazy Data. Uh, so to get a bit of a background, it's about what's currently happening in the data and AI space. And to do this, we've got assembled a pretty cool team of budding or currently thriving tech bros. So let's introduce tech bro number one, eh? So with me in the studio, the Chillin' with Dylan studio, we got Ryan. Welcome. How you feeling?
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan.
Yeah, first time
Yeah.
coming into the show. I'm
Yeah.
excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Have you done many podcasts before?
No, this is the first time.
Let's get it then.
Honestly, I love the description of tech bro because like yesterday I tried on one of those Patagonia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like,
But
mate.
you're wearing Patagonia right now, so I think you already.
Oh, advertising. Yeah, gotta see those guys. Anyways, and finally, tech bro number two. Let's bring in Radi. Welcome to the studio.
Hello,
bro.
thank you for having. I'm honored you thought of me for this small data, big data, crazy data. I'm so excited to dig in.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a lot of good things to say on this. And has it been a first time coming onto a podcast, or you've done a few?
No, I've done a handful. So not my first rodeo. I've also hosted a few podcasts. So.
Yeah, I'm excited to bring your talents on with us.
Well, no pressure.
No, we're gonna have a bit of fun and just chat about some things that are currently happening and in our minds and on the news these days. But yeah, before we get into it, does anyone want to just kind of talk about who you are and what you've done in terms of work or study academic experiences, so the audience, let's get to know each other a bit. If one of you wants to go for it.
I can start.
So
For those who don't know me, my name is Ryan, and I'm a data PO, public confidential at one of the insurance companies. You might find out. But yeah, I've been in industry for, I think this year is probably 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
But it was good. Back at uni, I did a commerce degree, but data related major. I think they changed it to business analytics. Before it was like information management. It was good. Did a couple of stats paper. One of them was with Radi, and we did economics, and we did like econometrics. So
nice.
That was good.
Yeah, bit of crossover. Back in the academic days, wasn't it?
Exactly. And to jump off that, for those that don't know me, my name is Reddy. Like Ryan, I also did a degree in stats. I did all the stats papers, though. I did every single one that I could do. And that was actually a result of me. I'm not sure if you guys have read this book, but Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Like, that was the reason why I kind of fell into this whole big data, small data, crazy data thing. I read that book in high school. I was like, shoot, I wanna work with data because it seems like so interesting. So all my decisions in terms of work and career and everything has stemmed from me reading that book. I thank my year 11 English teacher, Mr. Reed, for showing it to us because it's really shaped the direction of the stuff I've done the past few years. But after uni, I worked at a cloud company, and then I took a gap year, which was wonderful, which you can find on a blog that I write. I don't keep it secret, but I don't share the URL necessarily either. So if you want to find it, you can find it online. And now I work at a fintech. Hoorah! But yes.
All right, awesome. Thanks for the introductions, Ryan and Radi. So stemming off of that, see what I did there? That's a bit of a joke. Get it?
Yes.
Sound technology engineering. I actually like. I think often I think doing podcasts like that, I notice that we often start using acronyms and stuff. So I'll try my best to explain if we just try our best if there's anything that listeners are trying to learn and understand. Like I had to explain what MVP was in other podcasts to do with these kind of topics. It's not the most valuable player in a basketball match. Go to the Dataverse software one that we did in Chilling with Dylan for the explanation. But PO, product owner, is it? That's one of the things. But I mean, I think everyone knows who I am if you're listening, unless it's your first time. But I'm Dylan. I'm your host of Chilling with Dylan. I have a job currently. I do have a job. What can I say about our work at a premier engineering consultancy in New Zealand, which I probably don't need to name at this point. And I work in data analytics and digital consulting within there. And before that, worked a bit in government, like a government analyst, forecasting, modeling, that type of thing in New Zealand, and did commerce and engineering conjoint in the University of Auckland with these guys, and we knew each other kind of during that point, all around the same time. And no more about me. That's the gist of it, and let's get into it. So guys, are you guys following the news lately? I feel like there's been a lot of stuff happening, buzzwords thrown around, big data or data for the ones Americans, whatever you call it, artificial intelligence or AI for short. A lot of things happening in that space. Do you guys, has anything that comes to mind from the recent few months or so, as of May 2023?
I think what we've seen the past few months since the release of ChatGPT, I don't even remember when ChatGPT was released, but that was kind of the what's the saying, the water that broke the camel's back or whatever, like the watershed moment, right? Because it seems like every week or every couple of weeks, every company that has a vested interest in AI as part of their business like strategy has released something pretty like monumental, whether that's your Google, your Microsoft, or your Tesla, or your insert big company here, insert Fortune 100 here. Everyone is kind of not necessarily jumping on this train, but they saw, oh shit, with OpenAI, and they were like, okay, we need to do stuff now. So I haven't followed too deeply what's been happening, like specifically the last few months, because honestly, it's just too much. But yeah, it all comes from the release of GPT in that Chat GPT product, right? Because before that, they had GPT, they had the underlying large language model, which you could do all the things you could want to do on ChatGPT now, but they just put it in a nice UI, if not clunky, and now everyone in the world, including companies and stuff, are thinking it's like the second coming of, something big, which it is.
Yeah, and we're not about kind of trying to push it away, and these news items. We want to like understand it like deeply, right? We don't want to in this podcast or in general, find the opportunities, but there's also things that aren't so good, but just like really delve into those things, and give the listeners, who I'm sure really wondering whether we wrote the script with ChatGPT. We didn't. 100% AI free.
Yep.
Like trademark right now.
Yep.
We're winging it. Like there's a lot of things that you can kind of do with that. Is there anything around like that you've kind of like picked up on over the last while? Like any new things that you've gotten into or heard about and curious about?
There's a lot of investment right now.
Yeah,
a lot of big corporates, are trying to jump on it. Obviously, it's kind of like a new playground for all of them to jump in, right? If anyone behind, they're gonna lose the competitive advantage. Whoever can answer that question right now, I don't think anyone can. Like they're all pouring money for all these big cloud companies to hopefully whip out a product that bring them the advantage. But I think a lot of questions they have to answer themselves. It's hard not to follow. I don't follow it actively, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
noise around that you
Yeah.
just hear.
You can't avoid it these
Yeah,
days,
no,
you know.
you
I think
don't.
like in New Zealand, we're actually quite, you know, kind of distanced in
Mm.
general from like the whole big tech space. We you know, we use the Google and Microsoft, but we don't, you know, follow a lot of the like, you know, big trends like over the last while. There's like cloud, you know, all the other stuff. But now you can't avoid it. Like, and if in New Zealand where we're, you know, relatively in some sort of isolation from, you know, the big countries of the world, everywhere else in the world, wherever you're listening as a Chillin' Dylan, you know, podcast listener, I'm sure you'd be influenced at some point. So it's important, and we got to talk about it. I'm guessing at least, which is yeah, this is why we're sitting here together, isn't it?
Yeah, I think another reason like make this thing so big, like what Roddy said, like GPT has already been released a while ago, right? I think this time is the first time they actually open
Mm,
the access a lot
Mm.
wider,
yeah,
like for a lot of people to sign up
yeah,
to try it out and use it.
yeah,
That's where you get all the screenshots of like
yeah,
crazy conversation with AI,
Yeah.
on
yeah,
social media.
yeah.
Um,
It's a good fun thing for the Twitter feed,
Yeah.
you know, like for those that like the snappy like I did this and that happened. It's good. It's good for those guys, eh?
have you guys tried using it and like realize a couple of limitation or like something funny about it?
Oh, yeah.
I use it for work every day, and the limitation that I come up against is just how you forget when you're talking to it and you're asking simple questions like who, like factual questions, right? Like what was the date when this happened, or who did that, or whatever. It comes across as really coherent and really smart, and like as if you're talking to someone. But then when you're trying to get into any detail on any domain, so for me, I use it a lot to help me at work with like how to think about messaging certain elements of our value proposition to our target customer. And our target customer is made up of a bunch of different people in a bunch of different roles. So I say, act as if you are this role. How would you then take this value proposition and blah, blah, blah. And then you realize what it's actually doing is just, it's an algorithm essentially that tries to guess the next best word. And when you're when you're operating at the limit of what the underlying model is capable of, the next best word often doesn't make sense. Like it makes sense maybe in the sentence or like in that line, but then when you zoom out, it's like, wait, that sentence, it's complete
Um,
gibberish.
it's like in a kind of like technical engineering term that I think that reminds me of. It's kind of like a shortest path algorithm. You heard of that? Like it gets to a certain point and it's just like what's
Hmm.
next, and it's like a very kind of like next step, rather than big picture for, you know, what's you know, in the foreground kind of decision making, and that's currently, you know, where these models lie in operating, and yeah, I mean that's there is limitations currently. I guess there's potential. Things will continue developing, and who knows, but I guess for me, one of the interesting limitations I found, I wasn't using ChatGPT, but my company has like a more custom sort of plugin kind of interface, chatbot that uses the you know, GPT-3 or 3.5.
Hmm.
Um, anyways, I've been using that because yeah, it kind of is better for our company's data. Um, Asking it random questions, like you think it's like your casual 8 year old might be like, oh yeah, this has definitely happened. But you know, I was like, Jacinda Ardern, is she the Prime Minister of New Zealand? And then, you know, because there's some limitations of AI past a certain date with trained data, doesn't go past that. It doesn't know, you know, as currently what's happening in the
Yep.
world. And then I kind of was like, so she's actually the Prime Minister of Australia, and I think that model actually started believing me. So sorry, Jacinda,
Yeah.
you're currently in that model, both Prime Minister of New
Yeah.
Zealand and Australia, even though you tried to quit. But all good, all good. That's a bit of fun. You can kind of play around and
Exactly.
yeah.
like, you know, this is what's happening.
Exactly. It's I think a really interesting, just to pull out that example, a really interesting thing I think of is like to us that is kind of funny, right? Because she's obviously not Prime Minister of Australia. But if you were the model and you saw New Zealand, Australia, and you saw that, oh, they're sort of country. Like, it doesn't know what a New Zealand is, it doesn't know what an Australia is, but they keep seeing it in these contexts. And like, if you were the model and trained the way it was trained, it's like just pretty plausible that, you know, she could be the Prime Minister of Australia. Like, when you, it's, yeah, I always find that just really calming, because like, yeah, especially when you see like really ridiculous screenshots on Twitter. I was like, yeah, I mean, it did the best it could, right? It did the best it could with the data it had.
Yeah, and it's just interesting, you know, because it's trying to learn as well from you, everything that you do, and you know, many models, you know, and implementations. It's like, how long are you typing, and like, there's all these things that it can get from the user. So yeah, whatever we feed it, it's like, you know, in the data world, like, it's the garbage in, garbage out. Yeah, you heard of that, right? Like, you know, we've heard that a lot.
I think that's interesting, right? Because like you get the data to train on, but you get the data feedback, and you have to put the governance on the feedback data, you know? Because like I think right now a lot of companies, because of these models, they want to utilize them, but at the same time, they don't want to get the public feedback data to like kind of bias their model. So they want to have the local model within their whatever organization network, and then they want to get the updates from the public data, but they don't want that the public to interact with their local company data, right? But then how do you govern that if the company itself gonna give you a skew of the data that doesn't work towards your favor? You know, what if everyone in the company just troll the model? It's just like, yeah, Jacinda's not only Prime Minister of Australia and New Zealand, but also UK.
She's taken over the UK, US, and China, and Japan. Yeah, she's getting there. Good. Like, I guess it's in a way, it's like an alternate reality for artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
You know, like understanding of how, you know, the human or physical world works. And yeah, it's all like digital systems. They are. I think the one thing I've realized about AI is it's still, you know, works within the scope of real world physics, you know, constraints, with like however the systems are set up, you know, data storage, you know, internet, and like, you know, the chips, and, you know, limitations like speed of light and things like that we won't get into. But yeah, it's crazy because it develops at a fast pace, and we're all following with popcorn, just like that Michael Jackson meme, I think.
Cinema.
We're talking about
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess like off the back of that, do you think, in general, for anyone in the world, a very general, non-specific person, is it worth it to chat GPT or not to chat GPT? Oh my gosh, whoa. It is hard to even say it, I think. Yeah. Like,
to ChatGPT or not? ChatGPT.
Big question. Do you avoid? Do you take in everything? You know, there's a few ways that a lot of people be thinking, how should I approach technology like this?
I think if I had to say lean one way or another definitively, it would be to chat GPT, just because I feel like in terms of how big an impact the technology is having and will continue to have, it'll be like the internet, right? And you know, imagine not buying into the internet now, you know, with all that we know of how it's impacted the world and how it's kind of spread. Imagine if we could go back 25 years at the start of the internet, what would you do to take advantage of the, you know, the landslide the wave that it brung? So I feel like, definitely to chat GPT. And just to bring a kind of real world anecdote, I was talking to a relative of mine who's a general counsel for like a big food manufacturer in Indonesia, and he said the thing that keeps him up at night these days, because he sees all this like AI news and stuff, right? He sees ChatGPT, and he's thinking, how are we gonna either train our our workforce to be able to take advantage of this. Because if they don't, then those workers will over time just no longer be needed, right? And they'll be restructured out of the just how they do business as a food manufacturer. And obviously a food manufacturer is very far away from like a tech company. Like they're probably not the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
industry to think about. But I mean, he's thinking about it now. I was like, wow. So when he mentioned that, I was like, I mean, that's a pretty tough like position to be in.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's like that quote you basically summarize. I mean, like one line was like, "If you can't beat them, join them." Isn't it
Mm.
like how to join them the best, and if you ain't beating them?
Yeah, that's that's pretty interesting that your relative thinking about it though. That's pretty much to show that the horizon is pretty much not that far
No,
away
Yeah,
from now.
it's not.
Yeah, that's scary.
yeah,
I think I don't know. I think it's kind of like to the point of like if we can't stop them, right? It's like the same conversation that I think a couple years ago we kind of
yeah,
talked about.
yeah,
Okay, for data
Mm.
privacy or no
Mm.
data privacy, right?
yeah,
And like you can't stop that movement from
yeah,
Yep.
coming. Like
yeah,
you just have to go with it and then put governance on it.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like you can't stop people,
yeah.
like getting access to your data
It's
and those sort of stuff.
it's out of the box,
Mm.
that kind of Pandora box, like imaginary, thing. Like this is the point where I went from small data
Mm.
to big data. It was, and one day maybe it might be crazy
Yep.
data, but like
I got it now.
just
I got it
breathe
now.
out that
Nice.
podcast name
Nice.
into the mix. But like, yeah, I think, yeah, who knows? I think like we often, I guess, like it's hard to think generationally, like humans, every single generation, or every few years, or every year, every day, new innovations roll through. And as people, like at this stage of life, all of us are young professionals with a couple of years of work experience. We enter it with our own perspective, and it's not just AI by itself, or tech and stuff. We are also part of it. Like it feeds from us, and we feed from that, become influenced by it. And like it's like I remember being like whatever age I was in 2005 or 2008, like playing on a computer on a PC. It wasn't that cool, Like you weren't like people who like use computers a while ago were like the weird guys. But like these days, the cool 15, 16 year olds on their
Mm.
TikTok and dancing, they're the cool ones, and they're using every single thing that is available, basically, including AI. And so we might be the internet or phone technology native generation, but there might be future those that are AI native in a way, just like
Yeah.
every other big technology from the past, which is something to think about, to do it or not to do it.
One interesting thing that I felt is like with all the news that's been bombarding us, right, in terms of how quickly it advanced, it really made me want to train my parents on ChatGPT just so that they can, not get ahead
Yeah,
necessarily, but like keep up and like not fall behind. Because I feel like, if you don't, yeah, yeah, and like I've never felt that feeling for any other piece of technology. Like not with the phone, not necessarily with the internet, because I guess they grew up with that as well. But like this is the first time I was like, sure, I feel like I need to dedicate actual time to like, all right, this is the theory. This is how you can use it every day. If you want to plan a trip,
yeah,
if you have like, random assortment of like ingredients in the fridge, make like that sort of stuff. Not necessarily to do better in their jobs or careers, but just like everyday stuff.
yeah. That's a
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
very
pretty
good point.
interesting. Because I had a call with my mom recently, and I was like telling her about all this AI technology. I'm like, man, this new update is crazy. Is transformative.
Yeah,
And then it was the first time she ever like, oh, can you show me how
Yeah.
it works?
yeah,
Like it's never like
Yeah.
that. Like you
yeah,
never like. I never told my parents about like anything
Mm.
new that like
yeah,
they would say, oh, can you show me how it
yeah,
works? Can you try something for me? And then
yeah.
I want to see how it works.
Yeah.
And it's like that was crazy, man.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was eye opening to see that.
I think, yeah, especially for the older generations currently, it is like the pace of things developing from whatever things were back in the day to now is quite mind blowing. And yeah, I think we just got to remember that, like, yeah, at some point there's people in this world that lived in periods of time. I don't know what kind of like technology like was good. Say telegrams, like we kind of hear about it, but I'm pretty sure anyone 10, 15 years younger than us don't even have any kind of inkling. So yeah, like we got to bring those close to us along with the journey, right? And it's fun.
I think one dangerous point when you use ChatGPT, like what Roddy said earlier, is like the answer it gave you. They sound so confident, like they sound like they know their shit, But then the next minute you ask them, "Are you sure? Like, give me the evidence." Like I tried this so many times, and then the response was like, "Oh, sorry, the confusion. I can't find you any resources." It's like whatever I said earlier is probably not that true. I'm like, shit. After 10-minute conversation with you, like now you say like none of the stuff you say is like true. It's like, and I think right now with the current trend, like I don't know about you guys' parents, but like my parents, if they watch YouTube video, they go down to that rabbit hole because the algorithm suggestion, and then there's a lot of I think Annie used the word home remedies or something. Like instead of going to doctors and professional, they just like go to these YouTube videos and like they give you like these sort of suggestions with like no scientific evidence or like experiments like result back them behind. Like when they use these AI technology, how they gonna like what's the way like if you educate them, but to a point that they probably won't realize, or even us, right? We probably don't.
Yeah, to think about it critically, believe it or not believe it, and follow it or not follow it. I think because everything is so confident, like you see on the internet. I mean, I think every time I see like TikTok or Instagram Reels, like stuff like that, it's so quick that you don't have that ability to just question every bit of fact or picture you see. What was the purpose of that? Who created that fact or information? It's like the world is becoming it's a quick place, right? And so I think for the like especially older and like really younger kind of generations, those two in between periods of life, that's the battleground states, I think, of like truth and not truth. So yeah, for sure, like got to keep finding that fight. But if we were, say, trying to explain it, I think a common thing that like a prompt that you might give to an AI bot like ChatGPT is like, imagine if I was a 5-year-old, please explain how gravity works or this random theory or how this technology, and then similarly for like a 80-year-old someone who's like at that generation, how to explain that. So for us, if we were to just try be like that, can we find is there good ways to do that, analogies or any way to kind of really help bring that kind of AI digital literacy up?
I think so. I'll give it a crack. I think I'll use the example of GPT as the underlying large language model, AI model that powers ChatGPT. So from what I understand, how they built that engine and develop it and maintain it is they train it on publicly available internet data. Essentially, anything that is on Google, it uses that as the training data, right, to feed into its model. And then the model itself, you don't really need to know any specifics about it other than it's just trying to learn from that public Google data set. And so you can chop and change, slice and dice the training data, the public Google data, in so many different ways to give a slightly different variant of that data set, and that gives a slightly different stimulus to the model. And over time, over however many millions, if not billions of repetitions, the model learns enough of the edges and the imperfections and the grooves of that data set to be able to be then used in the way that it's being used for ChatGPT. which the GPT model is ultimately to be able to, I don't know what their goal was, I don't know what their stated goal was, right? But it can very clearly emulate a person and answer simple questions. So I don't know if that was a 5-year-old level, but that's as simple as I could try to.
Yeah,
So,
it's actually very
Yeah.
complex.
Right,
Every
yeah.
single thing.
exactly.
It's like, oh, but where's the data stored, and like how's it run, and who owns it, who does own it.
Yep.
Yeah, these big questions, I guess. Like I think
Yeah.
with a like 5-year-old mind, you're like, oh, like you just ask the like weird questions that no one asks.
Yeah.
Maybe like that's I don't know. It's like I think I've been asked like, yeah, why is the sky blue? I'm like, okay, like, kind of know that, but like, why is the sky really blue? Like, why do we have this and that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts?
I
Ryan,
was,
on
I
how
was just
you would?
looking up on my phone.
Yeah.
This is probably a pure non-technical like
Yeah,
analogy.
yeah.
Like I don't know if 5 years old have watched like Good Will Hunting yet,
I don't think so.
but it's for me it's kind of like Matt Damon before like he went through that whole therapy
Mm.
session. Like everything he knows about the world is pretty much just through books.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like everything he knows just through books. Like he read a bunch of books, but he didn't research into the books
Mhm.
and like the experience of it. And so when people ask him, like these bunch of questions, he would appear to be very like intellectual. Like he
Yeah.
would be able to answer all the question
Yeah.
because of like all this book knowledge. But when it come down to it, like he didn't experience it. He wouldn't know what's the
Yeah.
reality, like
Yeah.
of the things he's talking about.
Mm.
And I think that kind of like point out. I think that's good analogy because like you can see kind of like a very complex size of it. Like one good side, right? Like he
Yeah.
appear very intellectual. He can break any like people who trying to be smart but without reading the books or understanding it
Yeah.
because he read more books, right? Like AI models access data more than
Yeah.
like than we can do physically, right?
Yeah.
But the bad side of it is like Matt Damon break Robin, like emotion and
Yeah.
psychology because of he just make a bunch of assumptions based on all the
Mm.
previous data that he read on, but he didn't really get into this individual level.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of biases that he got from the historical data put onto one single person and then
Yeah.
make judgment on that. This is how your life is. This is how your life gonna be.
Yeah.
I think that's a good analogy for these AI models. Like
I think so.
they don't have that kind of emotion. They don't have that experience side.
Yeah, it's really like, yeah, there's knowledge and there's experience, right? Like a lot of the information we have, we kind of like we have an experience, and we write about it on a blog on the internet or on posts on social media, but it's not the experience itself. But like what the way that the AI models can access our experiences collectively or whatever is by having that medium of translation, with like OpenAI's models, GPT 3.4, etc. It's just using that like kind of subset of like an experience and understanding, but collecting and synthesizing that. I guess, yeah, it's pretty technical, like how, like, yeah, we have to find ways of explaining it because, yeah, pretty complex. For me, I think, yeah, like it's the kind of like learning aspect that I think I find most interesting to explain. Like, how does a machine learn, even though they're not having the experiences we are about certain things. I think, like, an example as a 5-year-old, like I think examples are a good way where they get told 10 times what to do, and then they have that experience, and then they're like, oh, actually I shouldn't touch that file. uh, and another way, I think, a show that I've watched recently that helped, it's actually a K-drama. It's quite a funny one. It's called Startup. And there's a scene where the guy's explaining to the girlfriend, he's like, yo, guys, like, this is how like AI works. He's like, if I was Tarzan, or like there was Tarzan, and he's like had no experience with a particular society or something, like, and then someone's come to him and be like, if you do this, then give me a stone, then I'm not going to be happy. And it's like, say, a girl that he likes, and if you give, and then he learns that that's not good. That's like reinforcement, how like 5-year-old might learn, and then And then the next thing he picks up a flower or picks up food, chocolate, whatever, brings it to the girl, and this time there's a positive reaction. They're happy,
Yep.
like smile, and then this very simple sort of person or technology becomes more sophisticated if you multiplied that by a million times. You do something right, and it's like working, and then you learn from that. I thought it was quite cool, although
Is
it's
it
interesting.
100% true?
I don't know. Like
Yeah.
there was a cool way. I thought like I've one of the best ways I've seen like someone try to explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, like I just thought of another analogy. Let's see if it beats that Tarzan one. So
Yeah.
a 5-year-old would understand the concept of tests, right? Tests and exams, hopefully. And so I'd probably say, think of someone in your life that has to take a test and exam. Might be an older brother, an older sister, maybe a parent that's doing, some sort of professional certification. They're studying for weeks, if not months, on a prescribed text or set of texts, right? So if it's a math related one, they might be doing a lot of practice questions on, algebra or or whatever. But they're spending months and months, and they're trying to get that information into their brain, and then they use the test or the exam as a way to test that knowledge. The AI models, not just GPT, but all AI models, are essentially an imperfect emulation of the human brain. So imagine that instead of an AI model, you had um, 7 billion or 8 billion humans studying for a test and exam on a very specific subject. And then you multiply that 7 billion or 8 billion by 100 times more, 1,000 times more. That is the scale at which most AI models today are being trained at. But at its fundamental, like, if you break it down to just one component of it, it's just one person, one brain, not necessarily person, but one virtual machine, one one set of what do you call it? Not memory.
Neurons or like something.
Yeah, whatever the atomic unit is.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. Like the Tarzan example. So that's how that came up as you guys were talking. That makes sense.
Yeah. That's it's essentially the difference between big data and small
Yeah.
data.
Yes, that too.
You got big. You hit a big time
Yeah.
with all those bits of information,
Yeah.
people learning.
Hey, I got a question. So if you based on the understanding that humans continues to learn and the feedback we get is from the universe,
Yeah.
right? Like we try different things, and then how we get the feedback whether the things work or not is from the universe, right? If I drop the water bottle,
Yeah.
like it doesn't flow up on ceiling, it keeps flowing down,
Yeah.
right? And that's how we
Yeah.
learn.
Yeah.
So in a way we do have a freedom to learn, if that makes sense. Like we have a freedom to try different things,
Yeah.
and no one tell us what's the feedback. Like no,
Yeah.
if I keep dropping the apple, it's the universe that tell me how it works. It's
Yeah.
not someone telling me that if you drop the apple goes down. And then it's not like the ratio of 1,000 people,
Yeah.
800 people say
Yeah.
it's gonna drop, 200 people say it's not gonna go, it's
Yeah.
gonna go up.
Yeah.
So on average, I'm gonna choose a drop, right?
Yeah.
But that's how these AI models learning
Yeah.
right now. They don't have that freedom to learn. Like we set up the experiments for them to learn, and we also set up how they get these feedback. And they don't get this feedback from the universe as well. Like they're getting this feedback from how other people tell them and show them, right?
Actually, that's a very good one. I think I was just thinking like off the back of that, like it's like the difference between I guess like for us humans, we kind of it's interesting like the way we learn is both linear and non-linear, if you know what I mean. Like as a kid you experience so many everything's new and you learn a lot, right? As older adults, like sometimes things are like more or less the same, and not as many new opportunities. You've learned how not to drop a something because of gravity, but later on in life, like if you do something like you travel for 6 months, all of a sudden your learning journey might become real non-linear because you're now in a new country with like people speaking 50 different languages, and then you're learning how different culture operates. And I think the human experience is a relatively non-linear um, way of doing
Yeah.
things, and like we have bits of it where like school's quite standardized for like 13 years of our lives, and then we have other things that we learn from. Whereas I know like AI, I guess the analogy for me is like they're in a classroom, like they're trained bigger, trained even bigger, but I feel like part of the human experience that AI maybe lacks as much, like not as much as that kind of like non-linear. You all of a sudden bumped into a person at a
Yeah.
cafe that
Yep.
told you like to look up an idea, and that changed your life, and you became
Yep.
the new
Yeah.
bestseller writer of that particular topic in a book after you
Yeah.
did some life experience traveling or whatever. I think that's how things work in our universe,
Yeah.
right?
So just based on that um topic, right? Like that kind of understanding.
Yeah.
Like, would you agree to give the AI open access to get that kind of free will to do experiments and feedback? Like, or you don't?
Big question there.
That's pretty big
That's
question.
the
Well,
big
a
one.
lot of smart people think that our universe and everything we know it to be is a simulation, right? Or there's some higher being that's playing a game that's running us. We're just And what you were saying before, Dylan, about like AI models today don't have the capability to experience the serendipity that is human life. What if we had powerful enough computers and compute and memory and all that? Like there were no hardware limitations, there were no physical limitations. Then I'm pretty sure it can get to the point where it could emulate emulate human life.
Yeah.
So maybe every kind of all the doom and gloom is because we're not at a time in human history where we have reached that point of compute of like physical like the physical resources to make that happen. But in theory it could. And a lot of people believe that, including Elon Musk, right? Like he's probably the biggest of that whole like we live in a simulation theory.
Yeah, I gotta love the guy. A lot of the stuff wouldn't be happening without him, really. Like, isn't that true? Like, just all the things, the technology, the progression. Without people like that, it's just like usual. And then someone does like something and does something a bit crazy, and then we're now here.
In that case, would you give this technology that power?
Not right now.
Yeah,
I
why
wouldn't
not?
right now. I'd wait until we cross we like have more like physical resources to be more sure that nothing would go bad.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think over the last while, it's hard for me to be really confident in like humans as a collective, because there's so many actors and goals and motivations. Like, it is worrying to know, like there's like in the wrong hands, there's enough bad humans out there to really corrupt and use AI destructively, if they can even use it. But yeah, like control it eventually. This is getting pretty philosophical, and I love this. I think we got to continue this. Like, I've never thought this deeply in a long while. Like,
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Like,
I find Ruddy's points pretty interesting though, because like let's say if we wait to that cross line that we can put some sort of assurance, right, or the control on like, yes, whatever experience they do, it's not going to be harmful for us, but that itself wouldn't be free will to their learning, right? And like, would that prevent them learning more about the universe, if you know what I mean? Like, it's I find it very interesting because for humans it's almost feel like our end goal is just to learn more and more about how this whole thing works, right? And if we have this tool to figure out all the answer, is it still fun for us to be, to be
it's like
existence like?
Well, that's just philosophical. It's like, do you just want do you want the destination right away? Like, you don't even have to wait. You don't have to try hard or work. Just get there. Like automate everything. Or do you want to like actually like fight in this world, and you might take some risks. You might even die. You might all these things that life is about. who knows? You know?
That reminds me of this idea of like finite games versus infinite games. Are you guys familiar with the concept, right? So in a finite game, there's a clearly prescribed like what the goal is, what's the winning condition, what's the losing condition. And maybe I'll walk back on my answer before, Ryan, in terms of would I let AI go free? I probably wouldn't unless you can make sure that it's playing in a finite game, because we as humans, unless we can achieve immortality, will always play a finite game, right? We may sort of play a pseudo infinite game with like children and legacy and blah blah blah, but let's not think about that. Assuming you put any model and it can learn, it can do whatever it want on the internet or any like through any like computer interface, then it's playing an infinite game because it can never die, and so it'll always have different it's playing under different rules because it's not thinking about it's going to die in 100 years. It's and so the conclusions and the beliefs and the values will have from just changing that, because that's a pretty strict assumption for all humans that you'll die soon. You'll die.
Can't really. Go against that.
Exactly. And so if it's thinking on a million, if it's thinking on a cosmic timescale, right, like billions of years, then it could very easily make decisions that will seem quite like ridiculous to us who have to think in 100-year time frame. It might think, we need to restart from, that's how all those like movies, it's like, we just need to start from scratch. Exactly. Let's start from zero. Let's rebuild. Let's make the perfect society. That's how all those movies go.
Oh, that's actually that's such a good point, because like as a whole, like even human civilization may not be infinite, although like I think almost every person has like deep down will try to want to think I will be here forever. Don't want to believe that I won't be on this earth for like a finite time. And as a whole, our society wants to believe we will be on this earth forever as long as we want to. And then you got people like Elon Musk who want to go to Mars, which is anyways different discussion. Still in the same universe at least, or solar system. But I guess as an actor, like as a whole, like a conglomerate kind of AI being, it's unlimited in theory. As long as the solar system and things that requires operation are there, it's technically infinite in relative terms. But I think as people, like humans, we make decisions most of the time deep down also knowing that we're gonna die. Like so like a lot of people, I think this is where people like talk about their life choices, decisions at an older age. They're like, we kind of did kind of a lot of things that were kind of instant gratification, whereas someone who doesn't have that limitation, a person or other kind of being, can play the ultimate long game, and I think I have some good friends who talk about this. That long game is where people thrive or like don't thrive, whether they play it right or not.
That's pretty interesting, because like right now with all these AI models that are being used right now, what kind of timeline are they being trained on? Like what kind of decision making are they what timeline they're making these decisions based on, right? Like most of the time this feedback is like, let's take YouTube algorithm for example. The timeline is literally just click. Like this was the next thing. You click this was the next thing. And because of that, like that benefit for the human is probably not that good. But if you base that timeline, let's say for 10 years, like if you look at the historical data of a person watching YouTube video for 10 years, you want to recommend a route for them that, like give them that benefit like down the line. And
we're pretty bad as people to like, hey, I'm not gonna like eat this thing, and then like 5 minutes later, I've stuffed my mouth. Whoops. What worry about the consequences later? No, that's
man. I love this. It's put too much thoughts in my head right
All
now.
right, I'll add another thought because it remind me of like, I'm pretty sure Plato, one of his like one of the ideas that people keep like bringing up with him that he had was like he believed that the leader of any society should be a like an intellectual, a philosopher, and that they should be making the decisions by themselves, for the good of all, whoever under his domain. But he should also be like, as a principle, he should be separated from the people that he governs. But and then so the idea being, if you're kind of independent, you're not tied in any way to like family or like relationships or anything. You can make the objective. I think that was the idea, to make the objective decision, right? You could theoretically do that with like an AI model of some kind, right? After it gets a bit more mature, in theory, it could like be that it could be the objective because it's not, thinking about all the biases that we have in, all the all the experiences that we have. And so what if that, what if would that possibility ever come to light? Do you guys think? Because that's probably one of the ideas that Plato's most known for, and clearly there's something about it that people still keep talking about it to this day.
Yeah. So it's like kind of a very opposite like model to democracy in a sense, right? Rather than multi,
Yep.
it's singular, and I think with like I think like if you think about like a main criteria being the ability to make objective decisions, with facts and just facts. Already we probably can see that in many cases, like AI models can do that much better than humans. It doesn't have that human, like perception or range of emotion or like emotions, or family ties and other human. Whether it's limitations or strengths, it depends on your perspective, right? But yeah, I think it's like theoretically possible, at least theoretically. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Let's go back to like, because objective is again is also kind of correlated to that timeline of the
Yeah.
decision making.
But
Like,
imagine you could
I
set
can
the
be
timeline, so it might be for the next 20 years.
yeah. I think that's the thing, right? Like, because for certain people, they happy with a longer
Mm.
timeline. For certain people, they rather take the short, timeline. Like what Dylan mentioned earlier, is like some people's like, I don't want to eat this chocolate chip. It's gonna ruin me in
Yeah.
the whole year later.
Yeah.
The other person's like, nah, I don't care. It's just another day. Like, and
Yeah.
because of that, like, how you gonna have? Because you're gonna govern this whole population, right? And
Yeah.
like, who? Obviously, you're not gonna make everyone happy in a way. And
Yeah.
like for humans, what do we want? Do we want something to make that optimized decision that I may lose something so other people benefit, or like those sort of stuff is no, it's interesting. Theoretically, I don't know. I mean, technically, it is possible for us to implement things like that, like in the future. There's no doubt. Theoretically, like philosophically, should we do it or not? That's an interesting question.
I say
I
we
think
experiment, because when at the point where AI gets mature enough that you could have that like sort of leader model, you'd also be able to create a model of like people that it governs, right? And you just like put it in a computer and just see it over time. Like, how do people respond? Do they splinter? Do they riot? Is there a coup? Like, you could test it.
I mean, like, you could test it in like a small subset if you wanted to. And then you can kind of imagine or extrapolate. But it would be a scary thing if that subset, if someone did that, there was a group of people that were actually open to that experiment. I'm pretty sure Elon Musk would jump in. That's my call. But like, if there are, and then it works out that that's actually perfect. It's like if you're a political leader and you're like, well, I have to give up my power to like allow some better power. Like, do you still do it? Like, do I believe that would happen? No. Like, you're not gonna want that, like even if it was proven. And so I think that's where, as humans, like whatever our desires and goals are, do also come over the top of whatever can be theoretically possible.
Do you reckon that scenario like bring us to like almost like a zero sum kind of game, because like it's almost like the model is like I can do these many experiments, but this is like the most optimized option that you can do.
Yeah.
Like you can't break
Mm.
out of like these experiments and try something else to improve the whole situation. And like if we're in that situation, it's almost like the government have like bunch of co-pilot models for them
Yeah.
to like have make decisions.
Yeah.
Can you imagine there will be in that scenario like citizens, like people who like capable, like they can make their own co-pilot model, just like if the government put out this policy, this is how I'm gonna live my life. This is how I'm gonna like beat the
Yeah.
system. This is how I'm gonna
Yeah.
at the end of like as a result of this policy change, I want to be the winner. I don't want to be the loser. Because like also every
Yeah.
policy introduced, there's gonna be
Yeah.
people who like bear the consequences, and people who are gonna take advantage of it and benefits.
That's a really good like the point. Thinking of theoretically, like can we make it so that everyone wins? Is it possible? I hope it's possible.
I don't think that's a question
I'd
of
like to
AI. I
be-
think that's a question of like that's a philosophical question. That's AI put it to one side. I think that's a whole a whole subject in and of itself.
I know. Like I think I knew this was gonna happen. I think when you put us through here, these tech bros went crazy data direction. They did not stay on that topic. They were like,
Well,
what about this?
well, recently I finished the 21st, like the 21
Oh yeah.
lessons for
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Well, one of the thing that the author predicts is because of this technology going forward, like this philosophical decision made will influence our life so much, like compared to
Mm.
before,
Yeah.
right? Because now we have so much power with this technology. Like he predicts that in the future the leaders should come from more like a philosophical
Yes.
background rather than like a STEM background, because
Mm.
this philosophy will determine the end result. And that's in this way it's like it's pretty deterministic, right? Like because you have these powers,
Yeah.
like whatever philosophy you follow or like
Yeah.
you understand will determine how you want to use these tools.
That's interesting because
Yeah.
nowadays, where most leaders come from, like elected officials, they come from like they're like technocrats, right? They're like they went to good universities, had postgraduate degrees, went to like house brand like company worked at companies that people know the name of, like everyday, mainstream companies, and they're the ones they have all the credentials and they're the ones that get elected. I was walking down the street and I saw like there was a big billboard about a new MP for the local jurisdiction. I was like, hey, that he's like I don't want to I don't want to specifically describe them, but like
He did
yeah, but he had all the
right?
credentials, right? Like he worked at all the he did his good uni, great post, like oh like shit. And so yeah, what you're saying, Ryan, like let the philosophers take control probably makes a lot of sense, right? Because AI will allow them. What you're saying before about the co-pilots, I mean, that's how they operate now, right? You have your prime minister or president, they have all these advisors, expert in like military affairs and stuff, Secret Service, and like, education and healthcare. It's not like the cabinet is like experts in and of themselves. They get assigned a portfolio. So they have to trust their advisors anyway. And if their advisors or if they don't need advisors as much and they can rely on, some other thing that's probably better objectively, then you would want
Yeah.
philosopher
So
like, those lean that way to govern.
and I think like
Yeah.
as that governments are like governing the concept of governing as a whole. It's in many studies it's always we want to improve and make better the last version or iteration in other different terms, but like like theoretically you're going to get a smarter, better, more educated advisor next time round. But then every now and then, because humans are humans, you get the chaotic one who like does the stuff up, and then there's a French Revolution. I
Yep.
don't even know, like or like American Revolution, or like
Yep.
something sets us back, and like there's war and famine and
Yep.
hunger. We tend to run on these patterns for like a long time, like thousands of years as humans. No matter how perfect the leadership is. So, I mean, philosophically, it's like you have the perfect philosophy and you have the perfect advisory implementation. that's gonna bring you to more perfect, close to perfect world. But we're not.
We're not.
We're
not
never.
perfect.
We're not. We're gonna be at that point.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
not. You know, we're just not. But maybe AI is like an avenue of delving into some of those aspects. Yeah.
Well, whatever the case,
Yeah,
I feel
gosh.
like it's going to be a false multiplier, right? In whatever direction it's going in. So if it's slightly bad, it's going to be really bad with AI integrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we're the ones that like got it all started. we we start everything, so we're the one accountable.
True.
If we lose, it's on us. If we win, it's on us.
Yep.
Do you think because recently now like there's a lot of discussion on like nuclear weapons and like
Yeah.
that the new movie
Yeah,
coming up,
yeah,
like there's a lot of comparison about like this is gonna be
Yeah.
the new nuclear weapon, like
Yeah.
yeah,
the scale is so big and like everyone seems like there's pretty much like the same conversation, right? Should we do it? Should we not do it?
yeah,
And it's the same thing as like, and then obviously in the movie, like Christopher Nolan, like have this kind of message, right? It's like you gotta show the people, otherwise they don't know. It's like, dang it.
Yeah. Of course, Christopher Nolan would do that. That sounds like a him thing to do, right?
True.
Gosh, I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's definitely out of my pay grade. I don't get paid enough on this podcast to hypothetical calls
What
on
I mean
nuclear
is subscribe
decisions.
to Chilling with Dylan.
That's why you gotta subscribe, and you get that in the premium version. I'm just kidding. the
Yeah.
future of like
Check out the Patreon link in the show notes, right? You started a Patreon.
yeah, the classic. Hey, I think we've been having some really good chats for a while, and I'm really enjoying it. And I think I knew this was gonna get philosophical, and no regrets and no apologies. Sorry to the listeners who aren't into this type of stuff. I think I know who might be that not that keen on this, but to bring it more into practical sense, like, is there any other like small ideas and ways that you guys might see yourselves or other people, your family, those close to you, you'd say like can have a few tips of using AI to benefit them in a micro scale rather than macro? Anything?
Well, my first one is definitely just use it to cheat your exams. I just definitely use it to do your practice exam and just cheat it like all the way. Like,
it does help, right? Yeah, it does help. Get through the system minimum time and
because the system's set up right now, right? Like all the tests and exam right now set up like without this technology being available, right? Like, they all like kind of like I give you this test to like make sure you understand this like mental model, this like theory, and then you gotta once you understand it, the assumption is you're gonna apply it. Like
and
when now it's like do I even need to understand it? Like now, like I can just have this technology. I ask it, I don't understand it. I ask it to explain it to me another way. Like this.
You learn stuff in high school about this subject and then you don't use it, right? And so you're kind of saying if you just like get technology to outsource that, get us through and be able to apply it and then move on in case you don't apply that learning, that's could be an efficient way. It's
like one thing I do pretty much like very, very frequently these days. A lot of like YouTube podcast videos about like 2 hours, I don't know, 1 to 2 hours. I don't even bother to watch them. Like sometimes like if I don't like watching them, I just like click on the ChatGPT to like summarize the video, and then like I just constantly like have that conversation directly to the GPT to like okay, like the guests explained this thing where they spend 10 years research on it. What's the main point? And I find this point one is so interesting. I'm like, okay, explain me more. What did they say in the podcast and all sorts of stuff? It's just a lot quicker for me to digest information, right? And it's more critical as well, rather than just like being passive, like just sitting, watching, and like listening, which is exactly what we do in the system these days, anyway.
And on that, like, if you're the listeners and you got a novel way of doing it, do that to our podcast. Tell us what the summary of our discussion of our non-linear crazy data, whatever it is, give us like something that like so you can share with your mum and let her read it in like 30 seconds or something. Like I don't mind. We'll have a comment section. So just chuck down any ideas you have. You don't have to avoid using AI. Just do whatever. Be creative. Give us your thoughts and ideas. We'd love to hear. Chuck it in. What about you, Radi? Any other like practical ways or like anything that you suggest?
I don't think there's anything active that anyone needs to do because it'll come to all of us, right? Like with how fast it's moving and how accessible it's being made by all the big cloud companies, like sooner or later, the next few months, all the services, all the stuff that you use daily, weekly, monthly, you're gonna see an element of it. And I think just having that in the back of your mind and I suppose being able to be critical about maybe I don't know, recommendations or like suggestions and things like that. I think having knowledge that it is probably coming from GPT or something similar is will put everyone in a much better standing in terms of like not necessarily just believing everything point blank.
Yeah.
But yeah, I endorse the YouTube to GPT summary plugin as my most used Chrome plugin of all time. It's so good.
Honestly.
Yeah, boost your efficiency by a whole lot.
Man, I wish I could redo uni with GPT, man. I feel like I'd be able to do so much more and like do better.
Yeah, no more like printing off like 50 million exam papers and being like, like writing it down. Like I guess the younger generations of going through education, they get the chance to experiment and find out what will work well for them, as long as they're not restricted by outside regulations and rules. So I guess that
man, that makes study like a lot more interesting than like just reading it and then accepting it.
I don't know. Like I think, like there's so much you could do, right? I've dabbled a little bit. I wouldn't say I've spent a lot of time, using AI products, but I can see the potential. And I just like testing a few things. But like I think for me, just creating things, like sometimes it's useful to use ChatGPT like in a workplace setting. Something that you kind of stuck on, you're like, what is it? And the other week I was like, hey ChatGPT, can you give me like a really good letter or something that I'd write for a colleague that's leaving, for their leaving card? And it's like, sweet.
Shit, I've done that too.
I actually did that too.
And I'm like, as long as you say, I use ChatGPT, it's like all good. Like it's like come on, like that's a better writer than most of us can be. Like tell it to be all sappy, tell it to be all professional and real. Professional speak, kind of serious tone, whatever it is, do it. When not to use it. I would say I wouldn't recommend using it to like write anything like your wedding vows. I didn't do that, but like, unless you don't know how to use like a language like English, maybe use AI to help you with a particular language. But I promise I didn't do that, guys. Like,
just kidding.
Before entertain my mind, gonna regret saying this on the podcast one day. But turn that away because I have confidence in my own writing abilities. But I think honestly, I think this is maybe especially to all the guys out there. Like if you're not confident in your own ability to like put stuff on paper, don't always turn to like an AI thing. Like I think you just got to back yourself, right? Like whatever it is, heartfelt things are always best to be heartfelt things, and even put it on paper, not like digital. Like it just I felt like like putting things on paper still has value. So if you listen to the podcast and still do that, well, like that's on you. I'm not I'm not gonna like face consequences, but who knows. just some interesting thoughts.
No, I think you should try to use it like as much as
Yeah.
you can. Like
Yeah.
just test it out, see how it goes. But I
It's
think
too late now for me.
I think one thing to like consider is probably like just because you will be the one that judge the result, right? Like
Mm.
Yeah.
you want to judge the result, is it good or not? You know, like
Yeah.
and like you also need to judge the cost benefit equation. You
Yeah.
know,
The
you don't
risk.
want to try to like make AI craft something perfect for you when it can't, and then like 10 hours later you don't even have the letter to like anyone. Like
Yeah. Oh, I think it was like a scene in one of the movies I've watched. It's like to all the boys that I've loved before or something.
Mm.
yeah,
We watched that classic movie. But like the dude, like Kavinsky, I can't remember his name. He's like a bit of a jock, doesn't know much, but he likes his the girlfriend, and he like I think he just plagiarizes the poem, and then she gets mad after she finds out. I'm like, yo, in the future world, that guy's gonna be using ChatGPT right away because it was before its time.
Well, on that
Um,
note specifically, I've looked into like using GPT powered tools for like creative writing, and there's some really amazing like variants of GPT that are specifically for creative writing. So if you're a novelist, you're a poet, there's so many like authors using it as a way to like get over writer's block. So, and there's so many ways you can use it. You can input stuff you've already written. It can get context for like your characters, your plot, whatever. And then you can ask it to, rewrite stuff or like suggest further ways to develop the plot, suggest ways to like make the character more distinct. Like it's so incredible. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Alrighty, can you send me that link? I'm
Yeah.
writing a
Oh,
book
yeah,
right now. I'm
yeah.
using it.
yeah, let's get on it. Let's get on for that.
yeah.
Um, no, that's cool. I hope our GPT or AI powered creations really
Mm.
overpower and just like up and go up on themselves better and better. Yeah, I think writer's block overcoming that and even other industries as well. And I think this is probably getting into like a few other predictions maybe we might have for the future of the world we live in. I'd probably say that in the fields of creative writing and other types of writing, even other content creations like film, artistry, like creating like paintings or concepts for other kinds of things like sculptures and um, yeah, just the fields of music, art, film, even like I think like for example in engineering companies, you have designs of 3D models of worlds, architecture, buildings, like all that. Essentially, I think in the future you're going to see being increasingly AI and GPT powered, at least in terms of initial design and scoping. Um, yeah, and I think it's powered to you guys or to the AI if you're listening in and whatever you're doing with this podcast, power to you. We're your fans. We're not your enemies.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I think I'm not like good at writing or like creative writing at all, but because of like GPT right now, like I can turn my shitty ass writing into like readable writing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and I actually appreciate it because like most of the time is I don't want to be personally. I don't want to be like very like novelistic writing. Like I want my writing just generate the message,
Mm.
the idea, the experience that I have, and I just want to bring something valuable to the users slash readers. But obviously, like there's got to be a benchmark in terms of like readability of your message and those sort of stuff, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think because you want your right. Like I think whenever I do something, whether it's making podcasts or if you're writing, right, you want to connect with people as humans and bring people together along on a journey. And if AI helps empower that, then yeah, I think that's awesome. Like there's languages that I know how to speak a little bit, but I'm not super confident with writing. And if I need it, I probably will. I'll be happy to get on that buzz and the multiverse of like there's different language, and cultural lens that you can apply to AI models as well and get it to just challenge me and bring me high on that as well. So yeah, I'm getting so many ideas from this.
That's good.
This is a really good discussion,
Mm.
guys. I'm really grateful we got in onto this. Do you guys have any more little, big, or crazy predictions for the future of the AI or non-AI world we might be living in
Mm.
before we finish?
I think with how easy or how accessible it all is becoming, what we said earlier about philosophy becoming more prominent, I reckon that'll be like the case across the board,
Yeah,
right? Because if I had to
yeah,
redo uni now, I'd take philosophy as a major, just as a way to
yeah, yeah,
not necessarily as a investment into a career, but just to be able to navigate. Should we do this? Should we have done this? Why is this? Like being able to
yeah,
critically unpack, like we're trying to do here, what is the impact on us, on people we know, people we don't
yeah,
know, and all that.
yeah. Nice. I have one. Do you have another one?
I have one, but I don't know if I'm refining it
Yeah.
enough
Okay.
to share it yet.
Let me say. This is off like Radi's point. I think. I predict a comeback, and some of you are going to be hearing this, be like, I didn't know anything about this technology AI stuff, before this podcast. But comeback time, I reckon, not for university STEM majors, but for those university arts majors and, Bachelor of Arts and some of those programs like philosophy that'll become increasingly important in a world where technology kind of, takes over or, runs a lot of things in life. And the technologists or the ones who run that will, might not be as important as the ones who can kind of guide it and such in a good way for society as a whole. So yeah, I mean, I would go back in time and do some arts programs as well. It could be pretty fun. Um, yeah, but that's my call. We won't be bagging on BAs anymore as much, like we did at uni. I'm sorry if you're listening, but
Hey, I technically did a
yeah.
BA, so I'm one of those people.
Oh yeah, you did it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
No,
right.
I always like BA people. But just commerce people are too boring. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. I
Yeah.
think I think with all of this, there's gonna be a lot of noise.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so easy to produce any information, and it's gonna be interesting. I think world's gonna move faster, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you're gonna have a lot more information, and there's a lot of things happen outside.
yeah,
I think to live, uh, this is just me personally. To live a happier life, you probably need to focus more inwards.
yeah,
Like how we were like talking about earlier, how all these things moving like work and those sort of stuff, but taking time out, like focusing on your personal journey,
yeah,
is always like very good. Um, I think with YouTube, internet, and stuff, like it's so easy to be a follower, but it's
yeah.
a lot harder to be a creator. But with these,
Yeah,
it's gonna be it's easier for to be a follower as well, but it's
yeah,
also a lot easier to
yeah,
be a creator these days as
yeah,
well. It's like which side you
Mm.
want to be, and
yeah,
each of the side gonna be different
yeah,
strategy you want to play. Like
yeah,
you don't want to follow like bunch of things that not relevant to you, not
yeah,
close to you, right? And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I do think, yeah, off of that, I do encourage our listeners, chilling with Dylan. Some of you guys have been along with the journey, this podcast for 2 years, even sometimes, some cases. But yeah, it is all about you creating your own world, knowing who you are, and I think going off of that to use anything that might help you in terms of tools or technologies or AI and help you get to where you want. So um, as yeah, as I said, like let us know what you thought of this podcast. However way you can communicate or share feedback to us. There's ways that you can find through the platform you're listening on, I'm sure. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, guys. Hope you enjoy it. And yeah, like we'll come back to you soon with definitely more cool topics that may or may not be AI generated or empowered or whatever it is. Yeah, no, thanks so much, especially to you guys, Ruddy and Ryan. You've been great guests, and I'm thankful that we've had a pretty cool chat. Not a chat GPT, but a chat over in person and online. So, any last thoughts, guys?
I think it's my honor to be on here. Yeah. Thanks, Dylan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Joy.
And thanks, Ruddy. This really good conversation we had.
Same.
Been a joy and pleasure. So thanks, guys. You've
Ruddy.
just listened to another episode of Chillin' with
Dylan.
Dylan.
Woo!